That's not deliberate targeting of civilians. So in that sense, we looked at these, and I think well over half the things the American State Department report says, I have the explanations in my booklet, which I've kept with me after the Peace Secretariat closed down. But those things we will look at. And but we're certainly not going to go into generalizations. Now, Ban Ki-moon's statement, he's been very cautious, because I think the man is basically quite decent. So, in a sense, he's telling us a message, well, I can't cope with these people, so I'm going to set up a committee of experts to advise me on what to do. But this is not acceptable. It's absolutely not acceptable that he to do this on no evidence whatsoever. He has plenty of evidence if he looks for it for terrible war crimes in other parts of the world. And therefore, I think the government is absolutely right, but even better, the world at large has told him not to be so silly.
Referring to also the resistance from the non-aligned movement.
Non-aligned movement, because I do remember Mr. Danjalika, when he was ambassador in Geneva, just telling us that you can't rely on the West. The West used to come and say, now we'll have a motion, now we won't have a motion, if you're good boys, we'll pat your head. And Dr. Jadhav said very clearly, this is not where our future lies. We will talk to the West, but our future lies with the emerging countries, all of whom have a very strong awareness of all human rights.
Like the more South-South dialogue as well.
South-South dialogue, I mean, India is an obvious case in point, but Egypt, the countries of South America, China,
Africa,
Iran, South Africa,
Brazil,
the countries of Africa, all of them. We must talk to them. And at that stage there was a line of thought that, the non-aligned movement wasn't so important, and that was, I suppose, the traditional line that people had adopted after the end of the Cold War. But I think this particular action has shown that now in New York as well, they have learnt the lessons of Dr. Jadhav, and I know our ambassador, Dr. Kohana, is ideal person to talk to the non-aligned countries, and I think the non-aligned countries have responded extremely positively, because we are not to be bullied.
Okay, on that note, Professor, we'll take a small break and we'll be back with you soon. Stay with us.
Opportunity for the business service providers, academics, policymakers and the general public to have one-to-one dialogue for over 90 minutes with the guest speaker, Mr. Ajit Nimad Kabra, Governor, Central Bank of Sri Lanka, who would speak on Central Bank Roadmap for Sri Lanka on March 23rd between 12 noon to 2 p.m. at Golface Hotel Colombo, organized by the Small and Medium Enterprise Developers, Federation of Chambers of Commerce and Industry of Sri Lanka and Friedrich Naumann Foundation.
Slim Nielsen People's Awards 2010. People's Youth TV Channel of the Year.
People's Youth TV Channel of the Year. Winner is ITA.
People's Teledrama of the Year. People's TV Program of the Year. People's TV Channel of the Year. exclusive People's Awards, recognizing the most outstanding.
Good evening and welcome back. We are speaking to Professor Rajiva Wijesinghe, the chairman of the Council of Asian Liberals and Democrats. He was also the former secretary of the Ministry of Disaster Management and Human Rights. So starting from where we just stopped, and we were referring to the Secretary General Ban Ki-moon's probe, the possibility. And on the same lines, Professor, I would also want to ask you about the Human Rights Council Commissioner Navanitha Pillai. Again, she also, like a week ago, said that in the next sessions on human rights at Geneva, there should be a discussion and a probe into the war crimes. But also we know that the Minister of Human Rights, Mr. Honorable Rajiva Wijesinghe, he also actually said that they got a chance to speak to Mrs. Pillai like a month ago and explained that the statements made by the former general were politically motivated, and there was a political clout in the whole statements that was released. But what she has said about a week ago with respect to the upcoming sessions at Geneva in human rights, do you think that Mrs. Pillai has not paid attention to what the Minister of Human Rights had actually explained to her?
You know, one of the things we have to remember is that all these people are politicians. And politicians very often, especially when they depend for their jobs on people from a large number of countries, tend to sway with the wind. This is not the first time Navanitha Pillai has done this to us. The minister told me he had a very good meeting with her this time, and other people who were there as well said the same, and then suddenly she delivered this bombshell, but she did the same thing a year ago. We had a meeting with her, the minister, the Attorney General, myself. This was, I think, in March 2009, and she was charming. And then what happened? A week later she issued a very rude statement, of which we were given about half a day's notice. The minister had left by then. The Attorney General and I went and saw her, and we were extremely firm. We said, this is not done. You do not issue statements. It is not done in the United Nations without sharing it with the country so that we can discuss it. And Navanitha Pillai was flaccid. You know, she said, you know what happened is that I was given the statement on Wednesday, and I was in Bern on Thursday. And then on Friday they told me I had to release it very quickly. There's a nasty piece of work in her office who has actually, even Mr. Palikakkara used to tell me when he was in Sri Lanka, he used to do nasty things to us. We should have been firmer with him. But anyway, so this poor lady was under pressure by some Westerners. And after we spoke to her very firmly, one member of her office told me afterwards she'll never try that again. But unfortunately, you know, I wasn't there this time, she did try it again, not to the minister, she must have been charming to him. But behind his back she went and said this. Unfortunately, we have to put up with this. She did the same thing to us in the so-called special session. You know, here was a special session asked for by only European countries. Navanitha Pillai dodged the special session but sent a video message which was basically saying hang him and flog him. And a couple of special rapporteurs did the same. The Council delivered a stunning rebuke to both her and the countries who had tried this subterfuge with a 29-12 vote. What does this lady do the following week? She issues a statement that was again so partisan that many people in the Council criticized it publicly, and the Indian ambassador made a superb speech in which he took her to task and said, if you welcome the special session, you have to welcome its outcome. You are not here to go off on a limb on your own, because it is the Council that makes the decisions. And he was very firm with her. So maybe then she was nice to us when we met her the next time round. But then like a jack-in-the-box, she pops up whenever someone sort of, you know, when people press the lid hard, a jack-in-the-box pops up. I think maybe someone like Miliband may have pressed the lid hard. So we're left in this ridiculous position. But I think the non-aligned movement have shown her. I don't think after Dr. Jawaharlar's control of what happened, anyone would try in Geneva. They obviously tried to do this in New York, but the non-aligned movement have delivered another stunning rebuke. So that these people who are dependent for their salaries, their prestige, their positions on people in the West